Hi everybody. This is a quick update on my vacuum table plans that I sell on Etsy. This is specific to the people who are interested in CNC vacuum tables. And my system is unique to me. You can use the same plans to set things up a little differently if you'd like. My first layer of my system is my original spoil board right here. This came with my table. That's, same thing. You could use the same spoil board on your original table. What I've done is I flattened my spoil board. I made sure that I registered my vacuum table, which is this white piece. This is HDPE. I had a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of this in my shop already that I just decided to repurpose. So I planed both sides of it with the CNC machine so that it was totally surfaced with, parallel to my actual bit. Then I used my plan to route in all these little tiny squares and this vacuum hole right here, which I'm going to try to, stupid flies are flying around. So this is the one and only zone. I have one zone that controls this whole entire 48 by 48 inch table. This is just a regular shop vac hose that fits in here. So you can see I can just keep pushing it up, right? And what I have, just to be more clear, this is an adapter that comes with a kit, a hose kit, when you buy like an extra shop vac attachment. This will attach 2 shop vac hoses. They go internal to this. So I cut this hole to the diameter of this coupler, not to the diameter of my actual shop vac hose. So I'm going to stick the shop vac hose in there, and you see it's super loose, right? So this coupler connects 2 shop vac hoses together. And again, I did that for a specific reason. I wanted to be able to have the ability to just take my shop vac hose off and attach it to anything else I wanted to. So, and I didn't want to have to deal with trying to relocate, stuff. So this was just my solution. Around here, I have a square that is completely routed out around this circle. So there's no extra grooves running through here. It's just a big, empty square. All of these grooves for the whole entire board, when this pulls suction, it pulls suction on my entire table because I have this little foam seal all the way around the outside perimeter of my table. I'm going to set the camera down for a second so you can kind of get a better view of this from the side. And then I'm going to show this here on the camera. So this is window seal. If you go to Lowe's, Home Depot, any hardware store that sells foam window seal, you can make a new zone by just putting it in, closing it off. It has to include, when you make your zone, it has to include the vacuum. So if I do this, cut a 90 degree right here, run this down, what I could effectively do is turn off the whole entire table except for this little square that I could make and hold down one piece of workpiece. If you're doing 3D carving, if you're doing anything that does not go all the way through, if you're cutting through your material and you're going into a wasteboard like this, you do not want to put your workpiece directly on this very expensive, time-consuming table. If you're doing 3D carving and you're not going all the way through your material, slap it right on here, suck it down, you're good to go, you're rocking and rolling, and quick and easy. Now, I don't do a lot of 3D carves. I do make some signs, but not a lot. So most of what I'm doing, I'm routing through my workpiece into my spoil board. So that comes to the next part of my sandwich here. I call this the sandwich. The MDF work table or hold down original table, my vacuum table, and then my spoil board, which is 3/4 inch MDF. Again, planed on both sides. When you buy MDF, it's super smooth and shiny here. That does not allow a lot of air to be pulled through the MDF. But once you plane both sides, you get almost, I don't want to say a sandpaper, for maybe like a 12,000 grit sandpaper finish to this MDF. It's not glossy smooth anymore. It doesn't have this glossy smooth piece. And this table will pull air through the MDF, and I'm going to show you that at the end of this video. But there's a couple things that are really unique to this particular spoil board that's important to do. So one, when you look at my table, this is my XY0. So my machine runs off the front left corner. That's how I have it set up. If you have yours set up differently, then you will need to do the part that I'm going to talk about that will work with your machine. So again, I got to put my phone down to show you this part. And it actually looks pretty good from where I can see it here. Let me see if I can. So if you see this lip right here, this little ridge, this is my new 0. And when I planed this table, like I said, I planed the bottom and the top. I made this 90-degree edge on both sides of this table. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull my MDF wasteboard over the top, and it's going to hang over by about 1 inch because that's this gap. And on this corner and the flat bottom, I'm going to register this piece of MDF in this 90-degree angle right here with my table. So I'm going to slide that over and do it right now. You always have to lift it up over the foam at the end. So just drop down. I pushed it up against the bottom, and I pushed it up here. So now I am registered 90 degrees, not to my 0, my 0 is on the other side. This is the opposite side of my XY0. So this little 90-degree edge right here is now set up where I can use this to center a workpiece if I want to. So if I were to grab a workpiece and want it 90 degrees, I could bring it right over here, register it to this side, and say, okay, I'm happy with that. It's registered at 90 degrees to my table. I need to know where this is from my 0 to tell my workpiece to come over and cut that. I don't do that very often. I still bring this registered to the bottom, and that side because it's down more. So I'll bring that over so that it registers against the flat here. I know my 0 is in this point. I usually tell my machine, hey, I'm 2 inches over, so on and so forth, and set up my cuts. So with that being said, this is not going to get sucked down to my vacuum table because there's no space there. It's nothing but space. I need a solid piece of wood in order to make that happen. So I'll be right back. All right, so I showed you underneath this spoil board how I have my whole table set up, 48 by 48 inches, set up as one zone. That means it's pulling air through this entire table. If I want to cut a very small workpiece right here, it's not going to work great because it's losing a lot of vacuum. The reason I have my table set up the way I do is I almost always put a 48 by 48 inch sheet of plywood on here to cut. Or I get large panel glue up panels like this, and that's what I'm cutting. I'm not cutting a lot of small stuff. So that being said, if you plan to cut something small, you're going to need a couple panels to lay out to just take up that volume of space to help your smaller project stick in the middle. Or change your zone and put it right over that zone on this MDF sheet. It's only going to suck through this part of the MDF. It will pull a tiny bit through the porous top, but not a whole lot once you make your zone super tiny. But I'm just going to give a quick show, and it's going to get loud. I'm going to turn on my shop vac, and my shop vac is just a normal rigid shop vac. Sorry, it's probably not showing that very well. Rigid shop vac that I have removed all the filters. There's no restrictions in that shop vac at all. It's just pulling straight air because no dust. This comes all the way through and connects at the bottom of my table under here. There's no dust going through this hose whatsoever, not at any time. All of my dust collection is done from the top through a larger dust collector. So I'm going to show you. This just moves nice and easy. And this is a full 4 foot by 4 foot table now. And so I'm losing suction just using this table. Probably help if I plug it in. All right. Now we got power. So I'm pushing, and it's not going anywhere. If I push hard, I can make it move. Now I've broken enough suction on the table that as I pull it back, right here, it picks up enough suction. Lifting it up is easy. So you lift it up, get it where you want it, set it down. It's not going anywhere. Now, if you're doing CNC work, let me turn the dust collector off. Sorry, the vacuum hose. So if you're doing CNC work, you know most of your CNC is pushing down. It's not pulling up. You have a lot of side-to-side friction and vertical front-to-back friction. So I can move. I mean, look how easy this moves while that's turned off on a 4 foot by 4 foot table. If I were to close down some zones and put, say, 2 of these on here, it's going to suck just through a small space. There's no holes, there's no drilled perforations, nothing in this MDF. That just causes massive amounts of air loss. You can suck right through the MDF as I just showed. So I'm going to do it again. Once you get into the spot where the zone is, the majority of this is catching, you're good. So right here, I lose enough that I can move it side to side, but front to back's a little harder. If I lift up, it's easy. I drop it, it's not going anywhere. I'm moving this whole table. My phone's on a gimbal. Shouldn't be moving. And that's with the back piece hanging off the table by a couple inches. Okay, so again, if I lift up, just the slightest lift, I can take it right off. It's not going anywhere. Now, also, I'm going to try to lift up on the MDF table. See, I can lift up. I can pull the vacuum off because I'm lifting. But if I try to pull it towards me, it's not going anywhere. If I lift, I can lift it. But listen to that vacuum. You can even see the hose. So when I talk about the sandwich, if you're asking me questions about the table and how it works, I often say this is my 3-part sandwich. Original spoil board, my vacuum table, which is the white piece, the HDMF, and then the MDF waste board. Again, if you're not doing full through carves, you don't even need the MDF waste board. You would just make a zone, stick your piece of wood to it, and lock it down. So this is how easy it is to just make some changes. You know, I'm not worried about setting it up and re-registering it because all my 90 degrees that are on the bottom of this MDF and on the top of this MDF are easy to relocate. So if I push this board off, I don't want to drop it. Okay, it won't fall. So I'm just going to make a new zone here real quick. I want to make sure you can see. So I think this is like 3/8 window sealer. And all I'm doing is just rolling it, hit a sharp 90. And then right here, this is the part that sometimes confuses people. So right here, I'm going to take this piece of foam and just dead end. A lot of times I don't even cut my foam, you know, because there's no reason to have a whole bunch of little pieces of foam laying around. It makes it useless. So you want to make sure you're mostly sealed in here because it's going to suck this stuff right in. I'm going to try to get you a shot from the side so you can see that my old piece of foam is really low to the surface because it's been here, it's sucked down and it keeps this shape. The new foam is sticking up really high. That's going to get sucked down. So now I'm going to take this board, really long big board, right? Yeah. Hopefully you can see I'm not on the whole table. I'm hanging off way down here at the edge. I'm just hanging off. The only part of this area that's going to be sucked down is right here in the middle. So I'm going to try to get you set up. Okay. Not going anywhere. It's only pulling a little 1 foot section right in the middle. But again, if I want to lift up on it, see, this is even harder to lift up on because it's directly vacuumed down. But as long as I catch that full square, if I only catch a part of it, it's still doing a darn good job once you cover the hole. Boom, right there. Even though these are all air gaps, this is all sucking air through there. So I'm still going to be able to move it. But as you see, once I start to get over, like right there, that's locked down. I still have a little air gap right here, but I have enough suction that it's not going anywhere. As soon as I pull it up over that seal, it's locked down. That is trapped. Now I'm going to push right there a lot. That was a hard push. If you run your machine hard enough to push the wood off this table, you should have already broken a bit. So that's the way this vacuum table works. I don't drill any extra holes in my MDF. I surface both sides. Once you surface both sides, you have enough suction through your MDF that you're locked down. You don't need anything more. And again, if I want to set this right back up, so you can see I've got a little piece of foam left over in there. Just because it was really long, I just made it kind of a J because I didn't want to cut it off. But to set it back up, I'm just going to take this corner right here. Got to lift it up over the foam. Let me see if I can get you a better shot. So I'm going to take this corner, I'm going to pull it, and it just dropped down. And I push it right up against that table, and it registers. and I've registered to the side. So now I'm registered 90 degrees front and back all the way. And because this was cut by my CNC machine, this 90 degree was cut by my CNC machine, and my HDPE was cut by my CNC machine. They were cut at the same time. They register to each other. There's solid lockdown. I can put my workpiece right in the middle, register on my right hand side because it's 90 degrees to my table over here. That's 90 degrees to my table. This is right in the middle. If I mark my workpiece, I can say put my 0, 0 right in the center and start my carve right in the middle of this table. It's going to hold down despite the fact that half my table is still sucking air. So I probably got to get closer to the vacuum spot. So if you want to make it in that middle part, you would want to do a zone. Usually if I'm doing carves like this, I have made an end. This piece is actually one of my cover pieces that I would have living right here. And then I could put my other work pieces down around it. So I misspoke. If you want to do a carve like that in the center, you're probably going to want to make your own zone. And in order to do that the way I have cut my table, like I said, my zone has to include this. So I can do a small little, wrap around here and then come up and make a big zone right through the middle here, but it has to come down and wrap around this. I've got other plans, or in my plans, there should be one to cut 4 holes for 4 different vacuum hold downs. You can put one right in the middle if you only want to have one, or I've made it to where you can have 2. And all you have to do, again, is buy a couple of these couplers, jump, one vac hose from here to here, from here to the next coupler, and so on and so forth. And when you turn your vac on, it's going to pull air through all 4 of those couplers. It requires a few other Ys and stuff like that, but it's not a big deal. I just didn't want to do that. I don't mind doing a little zone off here and running it around the table. It takes a few seconds. So that's the way my vacuum table is set up. That's the way it's made. Now, if you don't have access, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to see under my machine very well. So my machine access was originally only a couple inches. And then I've got, some cross members, the metal cross members, but that's the spoil board right here. That's the original spoil board. I cut a hole right through the middle of my spoil board for my hose vac to go right into. If you don't have a lot of access under your table, you're going to have to make a hole. You can look right here. I cut out a whole entire section under my table specifically for that vacuum piece, but I also made a vertical clamp right here so that I could do some end carving. So that's a whole different thing, but this is a clamp. So I can put my wood horizontal and do end grain carving, milling. So yeah, so this is the shop vac right here. This is where it hooks up. I don't have to do anything special other than hook it in. That's pretty much it. That's the whole table. It's actually a super simple, very easy design. You don't have to take off your original wasteboard. I recommend leaving your original wasteboard in place. You're only going to lose a little bit of height in some of your carves, but I mean, unless you're carving gigantic material, I can't imagine losing, 1.5 to 2 inches is going to be that big of a deal. If you're carving plywood and 3/4 inch material like I am, it's not a big deal at all. So that's it. That's pretty much the best rundown I can give. The key to this whole system is all of these grids are one big hole, and you have to seal the ends. You have to seal wherever you want your table to be, whatever you want your cut size. I can turn this into a 2 foot by 4 foot vacuum table, a 2 foot by 2 foot. I can turn it into as small as a 3 inch by 3 inch vacuum table right there. I mean, just whatever you want to do. You can make it any size you want. You don't have to cut out the whole entire, if you want to say, hey, I'm never going to do anything over 30 by 30, just make your vacuum table 30 by 30. Put it down on there, turn it on, you're good to go. Take it off when you're done and just use your original spoil board. Once the vacuum table is sitting on the spoil board, the only hole that goes through is where your shop vac is. So as long as these two are flat to one another, you're golden. That's the big key. So that's the vacuum table in a nutshell. I know it's a super long video and it's not relevant to a lot of people, but for the few people who are having a hard time setting up their vacuum table, fast forward through to the parts that are what you need to hear. I hope you enjoy it. To me, this has made my CNC life so much easier. Like I said, I do a lot of large sheets and I carve mostly, beehives and cabinet stuff. So, doing a 48-inch by 48-inch piece of work on here is exceptional for my needs. I hope that helps. And if you found some good tips in this, please recommend it to your friends. Recommend the video to anybody with a vacuum table that's just not understanding the concept, regardless of where they get it from. But my plans, I think, are 10 or 12 bucks and super simple. This table can be made out of MDF, HDPE, could be made out of any material that is not super porous. If you do this out of HD or out of MDF, I would only plane the top off of one side, and that would be the side that's going to be against your work surface there. All right. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it was helpful.